we're going to build a really useful Spanish pattern, one that helps you talk about what was happening in the past. Not the big finished action, not the dramatic plot twist, but the background, the ongoing scene, the picture behind the picture. In English, we often say things like, I was eating, we were working, they were walking, or it used to be like this. In Spanish, this pattern is wonderfully smooth and honestly kind of cozy. The good news, it's very pattern-based. Once you hear the rhythm, your brain can grab it quickly, and the rhythm matters here. Let's start with the big idea. For many verbs, Spanish gives you a past form that feels like was doing or were doing. So estudiaba means was studying, trabajaban means were working, and comíamos means we're eating. Here's the shortcut. For verbs ending in AR, the key sound is aba. For verbs ending in ER and IR, the key sound is ia. Think of it like two little musical endings. Aba, aba, aba for AR verbs, and ia, ia, ia for ER and IR verbs. So listen for the pattern. Trabajar becomes trabajaba. Trabajar, trabajaba. Caminar becomes caminaba. Visitar becomes visitaba. Nice and steady. Now the other group. Comer becomes comía. Beber becomes bebía. Estudiar is actually an AR verb, so that one goes back to estudiaba. But if you hear beber, comía, bebía, there's that ia sound. And estar becomes estaba. That one is going to be super useful. Let's make this active right away. How do you say I was studying in Spanish?
Estudiaba.
Estudiaba. Good. And notice something very Spanish here. You often do not need to say yo. Estudiaba already tells us I was studying, or sometimes he or she was studying, depending on context. Spanish loves efficiency. Why use an extra word if the verb is already doing the work? Now let's build the endings in a simple way. For AR verbs, you'll hear forms like hablaba, trabajaba, caminaba. In our lesson, estaba, jugaba, estudiaba, trabajaba, caminaba, visitaba. For ER verbs, comía, bebía. Let's walk through a few people. Estaba, I was, he was, she was. Estabas, you were. Estaba again for he or she was. Estábamos, we were. Estaban, they were. And yes, that middle one, estábamos, has an accent mark. A little reminder that the stress sits there. Estábamos. Don't worry too much about perfection, but do try to hear the beat. Now with trabajar. Trabajaba, I was working. Trabajabas, you were working. Trabajaba, he or she was working. Trabajábamos, we were working. Trabajaban, they were working. See the pattern? That's your memory trick. Same bass, familiar ending, repeated rhythm. Spanish is helping you more than it seems. How do you say, they were working, in Spanish? Trabajaban. Trabajaban. Nice. Now let's bring in comer and beber. Comía, I was eating. Comías, you were eating. Comía, he or she was eating. Comíamos, we were eating. Comían, they were eating. Beber does the same thing. Bebía, bebías, bebía, bebíamos, bebían. A useful little pronunciation note. That E in comía or bebía is important. It makes the word stretch just a bit. Comía, bebía, not comía, not bebía. Give it that tiny extra beat. How do you say we were eating in Spanish? Comíamos. Comíamos. Perfect. Now let's make it more real, because grammar without real life is like a backpack with no straps. Technically a backpack, but not very helpful. Imagine a scene from yesterday. It was afternoon. Maybe the sun was out, maybe your coffee was getting cold. You want to describe the background. Estaba en casa. I was at home. Bebía café. I was drinking coffee. Estudiaba español. I was studying Spanish. That's the flavor of this form. It paints the ongoing situation. How do you say I was drinking coffee in Spanish. Bebía café. Bebía café. Good. And here's a common learner mistake to avoid: trying to force every English was into a separate word-by-word translation. In Spanish, you often do not need a separate word for was plus another verb. The ending already carries that meaning. So I was studying is simply estudiaba, not something like estaba estudiar. Keep it elegant. Now let's use jugar, because it's common and fun. Jugaba means was playing. In everyday life, that could be playing a game, playing outside, or for sports, depending on context. Jugaba al fútbol means was playing soccer. That little al is a combo of a plus el. You'll hear it all the time with sports. Jugar al fútbol, jugar al tenis. Tiny word, big usefulness. How do you say he was playing soccer in Spanish? Jugaba al fútbol. Jugaba al fútbol. Excellent. Notice again, no need to force el unless you really need clarity. Let's keep stacking useful phrases. Caminaba en el parque. Was walking in the park. Visitaba a mi abuela. Was visiting my grandmother. Trabajábamos mucho. We were working a lot. Estaban en casa. They were at home. Quick side note. With people, Spanish uses the personal a. So visitaba a mi abuela, not just visitaba a mi abuela. That little a appears before a person who receives the action. It's a small word with a big job. How do you say she was walking in the park? Caminaba en el parque. Caminaba en el parque. Very good. How do you say we were visiting my grandmother in Spanish? Visitábamos a mi abuela. Visitábamos a mi abuela. Nice work. Now let's hear the pattern in a mini story. Just listen first. Ayer por la tarde, estaba en casa. Bebía café y estudiaba español. Mis amigos trabajaban. Mi hermana caminaba en el parque. Más tarde, visitábamos a mi abuela. In English, yesterday in the afternoon, I was at home. I was drinking coffee and studying Spanish. My friends were working. My sister was walking in the park. Later, we were visiting my grandmother. Can you feel it? These forms give the scene texture. They're not shouting, "Look what happened." They're saying, "Here's what was going on." Let's make you say a few more. How do you say we were at home in Spanish? Estábamos en casa. Estábamos en casa. How do you say you were drinking water in Spanish? Bebías agua. Bebías agua. Nice. And a tiny useful note. Agua is a feminine noun, but we say el agua in the singular because it sounds smoother. But with adjectives, it's still feminine. El agua fría. Today we only need agua, but that little detail will help later. How do you say they were studying Spanish in Spanish? Estudiaban español. Estudiaban español. How do you say I was working a lot in Spanish? Trabajaba mucho. Trabajaba mucho. Great. Now one more thing that helps memory. Group the verbs by sound. Aba team, estaba, jugaba, estudiaba, trabajaba, caminaba, visitaba. Ia team, comía, bebía. If you remember the team sound, you can often pull out the word you need faster. It's almost like Spanish gives you two shelves in your mental closet. Put the verbs on the right shelf, and the ending comes with them. Another mistake to avoid: mixing present tense and this past pattern. For example, trabajo means I work, but trabajaba means I was working or I used to work, depending on context. Comemos means we eat, but comíamos means we were eating. That extra sound changes the time frame, so let your ear notice it. Let's do a quick contrast. Estudio español. I study Spanish. Estudiaba español. I was studying Spanish. Bebo café. I drink coffee. Bebía café. I was drinking coffee. Camino en el parque. I walk in the park. Caminaba en el parque. I was walking in the park. Small change, big meaning. How do you say I was at home in Spanish? Estaba en casa.
Estaba en casa.
How do you say we were drinking coffee in Spanish? Bebíamos café. Bebíamos café. Beautiful. So here's your core takeaway. When you want to describe an ongoing past situation in Spanish, listen for the endings. AR verbs often give you aba. ER verbs often give you ia. Then build useful real-life phrases. Estaba en casa. Trabajaban mucho. Comíamos juntos. Bebía café. Caminaba en el parque. And don't worry if you need repetition. Repetition is not a sign that you're slow. It's how language becomes automatic. Nobody hears trabajábamos once and becomes a telenovela star instantly. Your brain likes patterns, and today you gave it strong ones. Quick recap. Estudiaba was studying. Trabajaban were working. Comíamos were eating. Bebía was drinking. Caminaba was walking. Visitábamos we were visiting. Estaba was or were depending on context. You're building real Spanish now, not just collecting vocabulary. Keep listening for aba and ia, and your past tense ear will get stronger fast.